In this video, we are going to learn about the algebraic process, and we're going to learn how to solve big problems like this one below. So it's important to know throughout this video that numbers will be in red. So any number is in red. Operators are going to be in black. Separators, in this case the equal sign, will be gray. Variables like x will be blue. Exponents and roots will be green. And finally, algebra, which is our cancellation, is going to be pink, and it's going to be a different font from everything else. So whenever we're doing algebra, we're canceling out with the pink marker felt font. All right, so before we get started, let's just go over some notes on the algebraic process, and there really are only three main ones you need to know. The three golden rules. So algebra really is the science of two sides. Think about it as the two sides. So the first golden rule is whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So when you find your separator, in this case the equal sign, it cuts the equation into two sides, and when you cancel out, whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side as well. So that's the first golden rule. The second one is to cancel out, perform the opposite operation. So if we're canceling out a plus, you do it with a minus. If you're canceling out a multiplication, you're going to divide. So whatever you're canceling out, you cancel it with the opposite operation. And then the third and final golden rule is you are done when the variable is fully isolated. So when you have just x equals something and there's nothing else around x, that is when you are done. So now let's move on to our algebraic process, steps 1 through 6. Those are the three golden rules to always have in mind. And now we're going to get into the actual steps and how you solve the problems. So there's 6 steps. The first step is you're going to find the parentheses if there are parentheses. Again, that's a big if. A lot of problems you'll solve, you can skip some steps because not everyone has all 6 steps in it. So first you're going to find parentheses, and what that would look like is something like this. If there's 4 and then inside the parentheses is 3x plus 8. And so before you move forward, you're going to want to make sure you get rid of those parentheses because it will make the problem easier. So that's the first thing you want to get rid of. The second thing you want to look for is a whole side fraction. So it's a whole side fraction. And what that's going to look like is something like this. If on one side of the equal sign, there is a fraction covering the entire side. So see how that 8 is covering the entire side, the entire 9x squared plus 17, that is a whole side fraction, and so we will want to get rid of that 8 before we do anything next. Another thing to notice is, notice how the parentheses is in black and the whole side fraction is in pink, because now we're getting into algebra. The parentheses is the only time we don't do it to both sides. So like I said at the beginning of the video, pink is when we're performing algebra and when we do something to both sides to cancel out. So that starts at steps 2 all the way to the end. So everything else will be in pink from here on out. So again, first you try to get rid of your parentheses. Second, you get rid of your whole side fraction. Third, you're going to look for any addition or any subtraction. So that would look like something like this. You got either x plus 10 or you got x minus 3. So in the top example, we'd want to get rid of that plus 10. And then in that bottom example, we would want to get rid of that minus 3. And so that's the third thing we're looking for once we get rid of a whole side fraction. Fourth thing we're looking to get rid of is multiplication or division. And again, in this case, most of the time when you see multiplication when solving problems like this, it's going to look like this, 4x. So this confuses people sometimes. So really what that is saying is 4 times x. So 4 times x is what you're looking at there. Division would look something like this, where you have something like x divided by 6. And so in the case of the 4x, we'd want to get rid of that 4 times x, so we would divide by 4. And in terms of division, we'd want to get rid of that 6, x divided by 6, by multiplying by 6. Fifth and last step is we're going to get rid of exponents and roots are their opposite. So an exponent would look something like this. You have x to the third power. Remember, exponents and roots are in green. And then on another example of a root would be something like x to the 6th root. So again, we'd cancel out that exponent 3 with a root 3, and we'd cancel out that root 6 with an exponent 6. So you cancel out with the opposite, remember. And then once we have done that, we're at our answer, which is in blue, because again, that means that we have the variable isolated fully, and that looks like this. It means that we have just x equals some number. Doesn't necessarily mean we're right, but it means we're at the end. And to know you're right, you'd have to go in and verify, but we're not going to get into that in that video. So again, that's the end goal, is to just have the variable isolated by itself. So again, to get there, just go first find the parentheses, then you're looking for whole side fractions, then addition or subtraction, then multiplication or division, then exponent or roots, and once you do that, you have the variable isolate. So let's actually look at that original problem now, and we're going to go through these steps for this original problem. So we have 3 times 2x squared plus 6 divided by 7 equals 6. First thing you do, try to find the separator, that equal sign, and cut the equation in half. Now let's find the variable, and again, our variable in this case is x. It's right there. And now we can start our steps. So first, let's look for parentheses. Are there any parentheses? Yes, there is parentheses right here. And so that's the first thing we want to get rid of, is those parentheses. And again, remember the P is in black, not pink, because this is the only time we're not going to be doing algebra to both sides. We're just going to get rid of the parentheses on the left side. So when doing this, we can actually block out everything else for a second, and we're just going to focus on these parentheses. So how to get rid of these parentheses is you just distribute whatever is on the outside of the parentheses, in this case that 3, and we're going to multiply that by everything on the inside, in this case 2x squared plus 6. And then we're going to write our answer right below there, so let's go ahead and do that. So 3 times 2x squared, 3 times 2 is 6, and when multiplying exponents like that, the x squared will just stay the same. So we're done with that. Now let's move on to the 6. So 3 times 6 is 18, and now we're done with the 3. We've multiplied it by everything inside, and remember to add our plus symbol down there. And now we can cross out our parentheses, and we have eliminated them. So now we're going to take this and we're going to move this back to the top of our equation so we can bring back everything. We can bring back our 6 over there and our whole side fraction 7. And now we have got rid of the parentheses, and on top we have 6x squared plus 18. And again, now we have no more parentheses, so we can move on to step 2, whole side fraction. So again, that's a fraction that divides an entire side. In this case, we have that 7 here. So we're going to go ahead and eliminate that with algebra, and we're going to do that by, if it's divided by 7 on one side, we can cancel that out by just multiplying the entire side by 7. So that's going to cancel out that fraction 7 on that side. And again, this is where we get into the algebra. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So now we're going to go on the other side, 6 times 7. And we'll write below 6 times 7 is going to be 42. And then on the other side, we canceled out our whole side fraction. So now we can just drop our 6x squared plus 18 down there. And so again, rewatch that part if you need to see how we eliminated the whole side fraction. And now we have a much easier problem to deal with. So now we can move on to addition or subtraction. And again, as you can see, we have some addition there. We have plus 18. And so again, we cancel out using algebra using the opposite operator. So if it's plus 18, we'll just do some subtraction of 18 there. That cancels out the 18s. And then again, remember we have to do it to the other side too. So 42 minus 18 is going to equal 24. And we canceled out the 18s over there, so we can drop our 6x squared down there. And again, now we're only 2 steps away. 6x squared equals 24. And now we can move on to multiplication, division. This is where some people get confused. You'll look at it and say, well, there's nothing there. Remember that 6x squared, that is the same thing as 6 times x squared. So that's 6 times x squared. And so we're going to get rid of that 6. And we're going to do that by dividing by 6 because it's 6 times x. So we'll divide by 6 and cancel out the 6. And then we have to do it to the other side as well. So 24 divided by 6. 24 divided by 6 equals 4. And we canceled out the 6 on the other side. So now we can drop our x squared. And so we have x squared equals 4. And so now we only have one step left. So we have exponents and roots. And so we're going to get rid of exponents, roots. And so you see on that left side we have x squared. So we want to get rid of that exponent 2. And again, we're doing that by using algebra, doing the opposite of exponent. So the exponent opposite is a root. And in this case, it's an exponent 2, so we're going to cancel it out with a root 2. And again, if it was exponent 7, we'd cancel it out with a root 7. But just cancel it out with the root number that is the same as the exponent. So again, that cancels out the exponent 2. And now our last thing we have to do is we're just going to square root the other side. And now we're going to have our answer because we have x equals the square root of 4 is 2. And if you're not familiar with square roots, there's always 2 answers when doing a square root. So it's 2 or a negative 2. So that is going to be our answer. And we can move our cursor to the last thing there because we are finished. X equals 2 or negative 2. Nice job following along. Give yourself 2 thumbs up right there. And again, if you have to go re-watch the video, sometimes it might take 2 watches or 3 even to fully understand it. And again, next video we'll be going over how to prove your answer. Have a nice day.